There we go. Hey, everyone. For those of you I haven't met, but looking here, I think I know most of you. I'm Rosa Maimi. I'm a director in the membership area of AGU. And glad to have you here this week. This week we're doing a number of meetings, grouped meetings with section leaders to do a little bit of onboarding around the section leader role before you all go and do some talking next week about some of you, the council role, right? So thanks for spending so much concentrated time with AGU over the next couple of weeks. So this is our typical customary annual onboarding meeting with section leaders. This really focuses in particular on operational support and resources to kind of help you in your day-to-day. A little different than kind of the more governance and science piece that you would be doing on council, though I know that they intersect for sure. Also, as we walk through this, we recognize that these are unusual times and things are moving rapidly. AGU hears you, we're mobilizing, trying to see how we can continue to support members in the community at this time. And, we need your voices and expertise. We need to make sure we're helping to keep efforts across AGU coordinated in that regard. If you haven't already gotten it from Cheryl for the council meeting, those of you who are attending the council meeting, there's space in the agenda for you all to talk about those things, but I didn't want you to think we have our head in the sand as we're talking about kind of the operational pieces. With that, why don't we take down the slides so we can kind of say hey to each other and see each other. And this is a smaller group today. I would ask staff who are presenting, we'll introduce ourselves as we get to those pieces. Josh has put some prompts in the chat in case it helps for you to introduce yourself. It's always interesting the last one I find, it's always interesting to find out how long people have been members. So I'm just going to call out some names here of who I see on the screen and let you go for it. So Jay, I see you first. You want to introduce yourself? And you are on mute.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Jay Famiglietti. I am president-elect of the hydrology section, and I have been an AGU member for 40 years.
Very nice. Great. Osa.
Hello, my name is Elsa Rennebaum. I'm the president of the Kreisger section, and I've been a member since 2001.
Very nice. Bob.
How's it going? Bob Hawley, Cryosphere past president. I think AGU member since 2000, maybe late 90s. I don't honestly know.
That's okay. I hear that a lot. People don't remember, but they know they're members. So, Jennifer.
Hey everybody, I'm Jenny Druin. I'm with the hydrology section. I'm the section secretary and I've been a member, gosh, I guess this is 20 years.
Nice. And John. Oh, we can't hear you if you're talking.
He's stuck between a couple of sandstone walls.
That's
Yeah,
right.
no,
He's stuck. He's talking directly into that rock.
Yeah. John, we're going to keep going because we don't hear you, even though I don't see the muted symbol. But we're not hearing you, so we're going to keep going. So, all right. So why don't we, John, use the chat if you can do that. We can give you a couple of seconds here to see if that works. Oh, okay. Well, why don't we keep going? Oh, broken computer. I can hear everyone. Okay, John. Well, we will look for your comments in the chat, or when you think you're audible, go ahead and yell out. And it looks like we have Venkat joining, so I'm going to catch him as he's coming in. I think. And I don't see him. Hi, Venkat. We were just introducing ourselves, so you just came right on the tail end. So why don't you say hello and then we'll keep going.
Yeah, I'm Venkat Lakshmi, the president of the hydrology section of the AGU. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. All right. So why don't we start going through some slides, but raise your hand, yell out, put things in the chat. We have some time at the end too.
I think my mic might be working now. Is that
Oh,
right?
I can hear you. All right. Do you want to say anything before we get started, John?
I'm John, and been a member since I had hair, since well before I lost my hair. So it's been a while. No, roughly 87 or so.
Okay.
And yeah, good to see everyone.
Hi. All right. Thanks. So why don't we go ahead to the slides? This is being recorded. I mentioned that at the top of the call so that we are able to send you the PowerPoint and the recording. And there's some folks who weren't able to make these sets of calls that we're doing, so we're also sending along to those folks. So here's the agenda. We've done the welcome. I'm going to talk a little bit about section leader journey that we started working on last year, some outcomes of that. Talk about section operations, finance and development, and some tools and resources, and then some open discussion. Why don't we go to the next slides? I can talk about the journey piece. So last year, and I know some of you weren't here for this and some of you were, so I understand there's a little level setting. My team reached out to a select number of section leader groups. I think it was 4. Where we asked some questions and kind of mapped the role of a section leader separate from council, just kind of the operational pieces. And we've done some reporting out in section leader calls last year, as well as I think Amber, who heads up our area and membership, also talked to council. If folks want that background information, I can do it at some other time or send it to you, because we did a little bit of a survey. We did some conversations. But some of the things that came out of the section leader journey were these from to statements that we developed based on the conversations. So now we're at the point of vetting these, and you may see these again, but this is kind of framing some of the conversations that we're having going forward, at least in the section leader role, in terms of how we can help support each other. So what we heard, sections we're looking at going from operating in fully administrative capacities to making space, capacity building to get back to the science. So that's part of what we heard. We also heard about siloed kind of work that sections were doing. So going from functioning as siloed entities to engaging in cross-section collaborations. Like, how can we continue? We've been doing some things, but how can we continue to foster that? And would want your partnership to figure that out, because you know better than we. Going from experiencing unclear section leader role and responsibilities to receiving proper onboarding. Well, hopefully today is part of that, even though we've done these for a few years, but we want to continue to find out what you need. Going from reinventing the wheel to creating mechanisms to share practices within and across sections. And then the other is going from separate delivery of member value to partnering between AGU, meaning the union, and staff, with sections to drive and reinforce member value together. What I mean by that is, as we were interviewing some of the sections, we were finding that at a section level, AGU was also trying to do some of those things at a macro level. And how do we do those things together? I'm trying to think of a few examples. It could be something as tactical as a newsletter or social media, right? Or it could be something as broad as we're all trying to recruit volunteers, right? We're all trying to, and I know that that's a barrier right now for a lot of us. We're all trying to recruit members, period. We're all trying to work with student and early career populations. How do we deliver that value together? Because it seems like we're doing similar work. So from a really big framing perspective, that's kind of where we're at. And if we can go to the next slide. Some of the outcomes and opportunities, and this is obvious, but better training, resources, and guidance for section leaders. And again, we want to keep hearing from you what that is. We'll also talk about, Josh will talk about some tools and resources that we already have, in case you're not aware. SOPs and standards, how can we help standardize some of the work so that sections can kind of see what other sections are doing, how, you know, that could be like finances, right? That kind of thing. Section to section engagement already talked about, and then again, collaborating to drive member value together. So again, there's a lot behind this that happened last year. So I apologize for those of you who are new, who may not have seen some of that, and I can bring it up in another context where there's more time or share information. But this is the framing that kind of came out of those conversations as we go forward and see, to the extent that, you know, folks like myself and Josh and the membership team can help at the section level and help. So I'm going to stop there and see if anyone has any kind of macro comments, and then we can get into some of the tools and resources and that kind of thing. Any of this hitting folks in a certain way? Does this make sense? Is there like a big missing piece that we should be considering? Does this resonate with your feelings if we didn't interview you last year?
Yeah, I think this seems great and very useful.
Good, I'm glad. So we'll kind of look at this as a little bit of a North Star, right? As we go forward, working with you. So thanks for letting me talk about that. Let's go to the next slides, where we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the operational pieces. Again, this isn't everything operationally, but the big ones, right? So we'll talk about finance, we'll talk about development and fundraising. And the thing that we don't have here, but you'll hear about in our section leader meetings that are monthly, is kind of meeting planning, right? The section events. That's another big piece that we work with you on. Now, Nikki and Kevin, who've been doing all of these meetings with us, you see their names here. They both had conflict today. So I'm going to do their slides for them from memory, but I am not a finance person, but I've been doing these meetings with them for a few years. So I will go through, and what I'll ask is if there are any specific questions that Josh kind of record them, and then we get them to Nikki and Kevin to answer later in case I can't do that. But let's go ahead. So things to know around section finances, and I think many of you, if I'm looking at the names here correctly, I think have had some involvement in this already. But how AGU contributes to your section, there's an incentive program. There's also a $50 subsidy. And then there's the board designated funds, right? The 5K that you all spend on student activities. We provide financial reports. It's a standard report that the finance team does, kind of a nonprofit statement of activities. Though I would say we've adjusted those documents to make them easier for you to look at. So when you get your first, which will be in March, we'll look at that in a minute. In March, you will get your first set of financials. If there's easier ways that we could be displaying it, we want to get your feedback, because we've already made some adjustments based on prior feedback. So why don't we go to the next slide? I'm going to do this kind of quickly. So one of the things we're going to do that's different is that, for those of you who remember, in the past, finance had not issued section financials until after AGU's annual audit. But sometimes that meant that you all wouldn't be seeing your first set of financials until like way into the middle of the year. So what we're going to try is, in a few weeks, giving you preliminary year-end 2024 financials that are unaudited. So as long as folks can kind of keep that in mind, right? So the following year-end financials are unaudited. It's informational purposes. Figures represent best estimates as of the end of year last year, subject to revision because they're unaudited, right? But we want you to at least see where you're at. And as they are revised, finance or Josh will get back to you. Let's see. Yeah, so like I said, please consider them provisional. Let's go to the next slide. So how much money do I have? That's what section leaders look for and ask about. So there's a few areas, right? So incoming cash, so that's donations and sponsorships that you get. You'll hear a little bit from Kara in a minute, who's from our development team. There's outgoing, so there's travel grants, early career events, some of the annual meeting pieces. And I will say a lot of the activity you all see in your financials does center around annual meetings. So sometimes these financials don't look very active until you get closer to the meeting or right after. And the incentives that I mentioned. And then let's go to the next slide. It gives a little bit of a visual of what the actual, yeah. So when you get these, this is what it looks like. So there's a few categories: revenue, expenses, and net assets, which is basically what you have. Let's go to the next slide. So there's a timeline as to when these will be received. As I mentioned, unaudited 2024 year-end reports will be available in March. So that's a few weeks. And the way you find out about that is that you will get probably an email or a Connect post or both from Josh letting you know where to find those. And I may ask Josh to, yeah, there we go. Section financial reports are stored in your section's executive committee, discussion group, library. And those are only accessible to your executive committee. They're not out there. And there's old ones in there right now, like from earlier in 2024. And then Bob, I see your hand. I'm just going to finish up the finish up the schedule. So yeah, so you'll get your first financials in March, but they'll be for last year. And then in April and May, you'll get the year-end financial reports that are audited. So there may be a little bit of, I don't want to say discrepancy, but any fixes, right? And we'll point those out to you. In July 2025, year-to-date 2025 financials for June. And then in October, you'll get the September 2025. So that's the schedule we're working with right now. But Bob, why don't you go ahead?
Just a quick question. What is the AGU's fiscal year? Is it identical to the calendar year? So it opens and closes in January?
I believe it is. Is that right, Kara?
Yes, yeah, we
Yeah.
run on a calendar year.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I thought, but I was going to be sure. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And that may be it. But I would, in terms of the slides, but I would say, take a look as you get those financials in March. I would suggest a couple of things. If you have questions that, let Josh know. He's very adept with these, and he can either answer those or he will get answers from folks like Kara in development or from the financial team who couldn't join us today. So my guess is you'll have more questions as you get those. The other thing I would say, and Kara knows this as well, and this has come up in our meetings, we are kind of looking at the incoming pieces based on feedback we've gotten, like the subsidy, the incentive program, the 5K for the, board designated funds. A lot of those dollar amounts haven't changed in many years, right? Inflation is upon us. I know a lot of these things haven't changed since in my 4 years almost of AGU. So I do want to mention, and they won't be in effect in 2025, but there's been since late last year, some internal conversation about those incoming pieces to sections. We'll probably reach out to you to get some feedback, but no big news right now. But I do mention that because it has come up that some of this hasn't changed in a while. So yeah, it's a good time to kind of examine. So anything there before I turn it over to Kara? And these are all kind of tied together, right? The development and the financials. All right, well, let's talk about fundraising.
Thanks, Rosa. And you can go to the next slide, Josh. Hi, everybody. My name is Kara Green. I am the Director of Development here as part of our fundraising team at AGU, and you could see my colleagues listed on the slide on the left-hand slide. However, for sections, Tracy Lamondu, who is our Vice President of Development, and myself will be your main points of contact. So please feel free to reach out to either of us or Josh, and he could direct you to us if it's appropriate. And we're happy to discuss any questions you have surrounding development and fundraising for the sections. I also want to note that we're throwing a lot of information at you today, as Rosa noted. So if you would like to talk offline, have specific questions that we can't answer via email, either Tracy or I or both of us are happy to meet with you via Zoom or Teams or, the phone if you have any specific questions as the year goes on. So I'm going to start off just a quick overview, but like I said, if there's any follow-up questions, I'll leave some time at the end, or feel free to reach out via email. So section funds, as Rosa showed on, and you'll see on your financial quarterly budget reports, each section is set up with a fund. So that's typically where your gifts will go if you send out any campaigns or appeals or things like that for your section. Some sections do have section designated funds, which is essentially a sub-fund underneath your main section fund. And the example that I'll use is BioGeosciences has a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that has a specific fund set up for that committee. So some sections do have sub-funds that rolls up into their larger section funding, but the funds are dedicated to that specific purpose. So let's talk about how to solicit your membership. There's a few different ways that you can do this. We do have canned newsletter language as well as canned social media language, suggested language, essentially, that we could work with you on if you're looking to reach out to your specific membership. If you have a monthly newsletter, if you have social media that you'd like to use any of the giving links on, we could help you with that. And with that, we can also set up section-specific giving links as well as giving sites. And essentially, this means if you go on the AGU main development page right now, all AGU funds are listed there, and there's a lot of them. But if you'd like a dedicated page that just has your section fund listed, we can do that and make it, if anybody gives a gift through that link, it'll go directly to your section. And lastly, we could also work with your section on special initiatives. For example, in the past, we've worked with the education section. They do an appeal towards the end of the year, closer to the annual meeting, where they have asked their members of their section to honor an educator, and they also ask for gifts while doing that. So happy to discuss any initiatives that you have in mind throughout the year that come up. And lastly, I wanted to talk about section support sponsorship. So this is essentially reaching out to corporations and organizations to support your section fund programming and or using those funds, which sections typically do, for student and early career travel grants. We're happy to talk about how to reach out to corporations. If you have corporations in mind, please reach out to development. We do have section levels and benefits for sponsorships that go up to $5,000. They are on AGU Connect, and they'll also be getting sent out to you, but happy to talk those through if you have any corporations in mind, like I said, that you'd like to reach out to. But we do ask, if it goes over 5,000, that you're looking at a specific gift or a corporation has reached out to you to discuss the gift, please just reach out to Tracy or I, and we're happy to talk through the process. And I did want to share 2 important policies to be aware of. Josh just dropped them in the chat. The first one is the AGU gift acceptance policy. And these are both also available on the AGU main site and also AGU Connect as well. So the gift acceptance policy outlines the type of gifts AGU will accept and any sort of parameters surrounding that. And the second one to be aware of is the AGU organizational support policy. And this outlines our partnerships with corporations and the gifts that we accept from corporations. So again, a lot of information very quickly, but happy to chat offline or answer any quick questions that anybody may have at this time.
Hi, this is Venkat. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I
So,
can, yeah.
so one of the things is that Hydrology has had a very active newsletter, very, very active newsletter. And
Mhm.
this year we have even revamped it, and it's like a designer newsletter.
Great.
Kristen Whitney from NASA Goddard a proud graduate of Arizona State University. I'm giving a shout out to JF McGrady there. Is the editor. So we have an editor of a newsletter. So I'm not doing it, you know. So one of the things which I always had experience is to making asks in November, you know, October, November. I did this as a former chair of my department at South Carolina, and
Mhm.
you know, we used to send it by mail. It was late 2000s. So send it by mail, and we used to even have an envelope, you know, stamped envelope in it. So one of the things we really want to do is the October, November timeframe. We really want to go and ask for giving, you know, and again, having those links at that time, Kara, would be a really, really beneficial
Yeah.
thing for us. And again, I'll put you in touch with Kristen Whitney, you know, in a few months. And absolutely. And
Yeah.
what I will also try to do is we always have a nice front page statement. Last month it was, or this month it was mine, and the next month Jenny Druhan is writing one, and then in April it's going to be JF McGrady. So in October, November, all three of us can write one and say, hey, we would like you to give. You know, it doesn't have to be much,
Yeah.
but it can be given. So the second part is corporate giving. My foray with that has always been through, you know, giving offices. So I wonder if AGU, and I'm sure this list of people or list of corporations is a closely guarded secret, and I don't want that list. But you know, if there's any of those organizations who are especially interested in promoting, you know, clean water, water research,
Mhm.
water for the world, especially now that there is a lot of turmoil with USAID, I think that the AGU hydrology section can pick up the slack. I mean, I was hearing this morning about all kinds of things on NPR. So, you know, and then we have a good, strong, 6,000 primary members. So anybody can be a spokesperson. It doesn't have to be me, Jay, or Jenny. You know, anybody can be a spokesperson to help your office, to
Yeah. Well,
land those
thank
gifts.
you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, you know, if you want to look for water in Africa, I'm sure we have a lot of people who are members who have research interests in Africa or who live and work in Africa. So I think
Absolutely.
sometimes I have found, and this is with my own university here, is there's a big disconnect between the advancement arm and the actual soldiers. So we are soldiers, you know, we're
Yeah.
not administrators. So if you or Tracy, and I know Tracy quite well, and wonderful person to work with, but I think it would be better if you guys can reach out to me or the membership directly. You don't have to reach out to me because this is a time where I think water for the world, clean water for the world, you know, I mean, the connection between health and water, all of these things are so important that there may be many charities or organizations who may want to give, and we can earmark those things for, you know, travel scholarships or travel fellowships for, you know, people from developing countries, etc. And again, it can be specific. And so if you make any advances in that area, it would be great to have a conversation with the AGU hydrology section leadership, with you and with Tracy. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you. And so to speak to your first point first, yeah, we're happy to craft any specific giving links. I know year end, of course, is a popular time to solicit your membership. So please just reach out to Tracy or myself and we can work with our yeah, we could absolutely do that for either a specific fund or for your general fund or both, you know, however you want to craft that. So we could definitely do that. And to your second point, thank you for offering that because we do bring and want to connect corporations, individuals, foundations with the subject matter experts, as we are not them. We are the relationship, you know, brokers essentially in bringing individuals like yourself and an organization that's interested in that area of impact together. So I really appreciate you saying that, Venkat, and I know I'll share that with Tracy as well, because we are in conversation with corporations and organizations and foundations. And as we all know, due to the crazy world that we're living in right now, priorities are shifting constantly. So I think, you know, we'll be doing a lot more of that in the coming year, specifically with the subject that you broached. So thank you for that. And I see a hand raised as well.
Yeah, my question is about those kind of membership drives. How successful are they? You know, how many members? Do you have statistics on like how many of our members actually like do donate something when asked in this way. I'm asking because I mean hydrology is a gigantic section
Mhm.
with tens of thousands of members. Cryosphere has, I don't know, we're thousands, and then of course there's the ones that have hundreds. So I'm sort of thinking, we have to think about how we spend our resources as volunteers, and I, does it even make sense for a smaller section to do this kind of stuff? Is basically my question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think the answer that I'll say is that it depends. I think it depends on, I don't think it depends on the number of people that you're soliciting. I think it depends, quite frankly, on the impact and the content and how that connects to your members. So if you are wanting to build your membership, for example, and drive your solicitation and your gifts towards student travel grants. I think sharing impact that we've seen other sections do, as well as for our general student travel grant program, like showing a student who's received it in the past and sharing their impact story, I think goes a long way. And we're happy to talk with you about how you could go about doing that too. So, John, see your hand raised. Maybe not.
We're not hearing you again, John.
Sorry. Oh well. Oh,
Oh,
there you
we
go.
hear-
Oh, wait, now
we
you're
hear
there.
you now. There you go.
Anyway, my iPhone is what's doing the audio. But in terms of the giving, we found real success in two parts. One was having something that honored your community, and so also I think that there are people who in your community who really people are connected to, and that so our Bridges program, you can look at that. I don't think you need a big section. It was very small number of people who gave very large donations that I think has taken that near the 200,000 mark. Probably a total of 7 people or so gave most of those funds. And then the other thing is, and it is probably not music to the AGU staff's ears, but maybe it is as well, that people feel a strong connection to the sections. And so by letting people know, hey, by the way, if you really want to, you want to give directly, quote unquote, you can give money to the section, and some people feel more comfortable than giving to the general AGU fund, which they might see as kind of a larger, less directly connected, and maybe they're less understanding what's going on with that money. So I think that it's all AGU money at the end of the day, but it can really help to frame it as, hey, this is going to help our section, and you can specifically help students in this area, and then people will feel more motivated. Is what my experience was.
Great, thanks for that. Any other questions for Kara or comments? All right, well, let's talk about resources that I think some of you already use, but for those of you who don't or want kind of an update, Josh, why don't you go ahead and let us know?
Hello, everyone. I'm Josh McKee. As most of you know, I'm the section support coordinator. I act as the liaison between the sections and the association. So if you ever have any questions throughout your term in your position, feel free to reach out to me. And even if you're trying to get a hold of someone directly in another department, but not sure who to reach out to, feel free to shoot me an email. And I'm going to drop in the chat now the section support inbox email. Rose and I both have access to that. So if you're looking for someone else, we can always point you in the right direction. So that's agu-sectionhelp@adu.org. Okay, so this first slide is a document that the governance team created that explains the meetings that AGU hosts, particularly for council and for the section support team. And this explains what each meeting is for, the purpose, but you will see this again for those of you that are attending the council meeting, so I don't want to get into too many details with this. And this next slide is a list of all of the dates and times for our section leader support calls that Rosa and I host. I will be sending out the invites after our last orientation call tomorrow. So I do want to apologize ahead of time for bombarding your inboxes. But these meetings are set up to give sections the opportunity to share information, to speak with each other, and for the section support team to get out any information to you that we need. And the agenda for these calls will be shared with you about 2 weeks in advance. And we do take your input for these agendas. So please feel free to let us know if you have any topics that you think we should be covering. And when we do send out the agendas, feel free to send the invites to anyone else in your section that you think may benefit from attending. For example, when we have the topic for student and early career events, feel free to invite your student early career representatives. But those invites the ones that I'll send out at the end of the week will be going out to the section presidents, president-elects, past presidents, and the secretaries. And then my next slide, this is the AGU section year at a glance for the milestones document. Some of you saw this last year. This has been updated to reflect your first term in your positions for this year. We have it broken up by quarters throughout the year, and we have some topics in the rows on what to expect. So for the first row is the AGU 25, and a high-level look at some of the things that you'll be required to work on. Like Q2, you'll have the section support, the section event survey for AGU 25 that we send out. And then the next row is for honors that has the UMAP sections, fellows, nominations, honor review committee orientations, and honoree announcements. And then under the section leader call, those are the same dates and times that I shared with you in the previous slide. And under council, we have the 2 council meetings that we have dates for so far. We're still waiting for the Q2 and Q3 to be decided. Once we have dates for those, we'll update this document and share that with you as well. And then the last row is the ongoing things you'll be working on. So these are things that do not have a specific due date, but we have shared when we think would be beneficial for you to be looking at these things, such as your newsletters, your posts in your Connect communities, reviewing your websites, sponsorships, and reviewing your financials as well. And then this slide are the different resources that you have access to that will help you with outreach to your section members. I did want to give you a heads up that I will be providing tutorials on these resources that will go into further detail. The first one here is AGU Connect. This is your open networking and collaboration platform, and each section has their own Connect sites. And then we have surveys. We use Microsoft Forms to create a survey. So if you want to send a survey out to your members, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. We just ask that you send me the questions that you'd like to have in the survey and then the response options as well. And then next up, we have newsletters. If you do opt to send out your newsletter through AGU, which most sections do, I want to let you know they go out on Mondays. So please have your rough draft to me by Wednesday at 4 p.m. And then once the communications team has finished building your newsletter, I'll need to get your final approval on the final draft by Friday at 4 p.m. And if anything changes with these due dates, I will be posting that in the section leadership discussion group in AGU Connect. And then we have section websites. Section leaders and your web editors are free to customize your websites as you see fit. Content is mostly discretionary, but AGU may partner with sections to ensure accuracy and consistency of information. Be sure to list your section web editors on your committee rosters so that I know to give them access to your site. And then I'm going to drop in a link that has a list of all of the section websites on it. And then last on here, we have webinars. If you'd like to host a webinar using one of AGU's platforms, we use GoToWebinars and Zoom. Probably 99% of the sections use Zoom, but every now and then I'll get a request for GoToWebinars. Zoom is a bit easier to navigate, but GoToWebinars is a bit more secure. If you'd like to host a webinar through our platforms, send me an email and I will send out the intake form for you to fill out. And then for this next slide, oh, I think we had some questions in the chat. Yes, Venkat, these slides will be provided to you as well as a recording of the calls. And then the section support updates. So your section committee rosters are due March 14th. So these are documents where you record members selected for your committee positions and their term dates. These are maintained by section leadership. However, AGU uses these rosters to update our records. So please have those completed by March 14th. I believe I originally sent out the email at the beginning of this year, and that included a link to your roster. So if you do not have that anymore, please let me know, and I can resend you those links. And then the how-to video tutorials. This is what I mentioned previously. I'll be putting together some tutorials on the resources that I presented on today. Some of the topics that I have planned for is navigating and updating your Section Connect sites, creating newsletters, hosting webinars, creating a survey, and checking your section financials. If there's anything else that you'd like me to create a tutorial on, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll start working on those. And then again, this is the section support inbox email at the bottom of the slide. You can shoot us an email there. Rose and I both have access to it. And if you're looking, again, to reach out to someone else, we're more than happy to direct you to that point of contact. And then I know I went over that a little quickly, but I wanted to see if anyone had questions on anything I presented on or anything else.
I will mention the section leader calls that are monthly. I mean, we get the agenda. The agendas are really built on your feedback in terms of what you want to hear. We have obviously staff come in and talk to you about areas where we want to support you and also where there's some operational things that need to happen. As an example, one of the first things, believe it or not, we'll probably be talking about in our first meeting is about section leader or section events at AGU 25. But please let me know what topics you want to hear at at those monthly meetings. Not only hearing from staff, but hearing from you all. We want these to be a venue for sections to come in and, per kind of the framing earlier, share information, share best practices, or ask each other questions. How do you do this? How do you form a committee? How do you structure your section group, that kind of thing. How do you do social media? Actually, from one of the calls earlier this week, we got a request to talk about section leaders and sections and posting for social media. So we are going to invite someone based on that request for our first March meeting. So certainly, kind of let us know, let me know. But I'm going to stop there. Were there any other slides here?
That's the last one, just the open mic.
Okay, so why don't we bring down the slides? We've got about 15 minutes. We could also end early. Osa.
Yeah, just a question. So one thing, I assume you guys have a system for our keeping records, like the material that are pushed to us, the committee rosters, our financial reports and stuff like that. So one thing I think we could use some help with, at least for my section, is also archiving like our minutes essentially. We actually had an issue, and Josh, you helped. I think you actually helped me create like a folder on the Connect so we can put our minutes in there, because we had it on. We have a lot of stuff like on Google Docs, and then, somebody left and never transferred the stuff. And I mean, the short story is we lost a ton of meeting notes and it just seemed like so stupid. And I'm thinking even Connect maybe is not like a fantastic archive either, so I don't know what your thoughts are about helping us with like archiving and essentially maintaining our institutional memory. I think the structure of this, 6-year commitments when you sign on as president-elect is certainly a brilliant way of ensuring institutional memory. But yeah, anyway, so I'll just stop there. But
I think right now our best option for this is probably AGU Connect. The only downfall with AGU Connect is that you're not able to go in and edit the documents. So you would have to pull up the document, download it, and then re-enter it into the folder. But that's where we keep all of the financial records, the financial statements for the sections. Each year I download the demographic reports and upload them into the Connect folders. And also we do the all of your AGU annual conference recap with how much you spent and the event you had. That's all stored in your Connect folders in that executive committee discussion group.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. This is a longer term thing, but people have some strong feelings about how useful Connect is. And you can imagine what those are. We've been working the membership team with our digital team to start looking at a roadmap that takes us into online member engagement, what that looks like. My guess is we need to reach out to you guys to continue to get this kind of feedback as we look at vendors or stay with the one we're with. Right now it's through Higher Logic is the platform. But there are others out there that have been kind of put in front of us by some of you saying, hey, I use this. What about AGU? And also from our digital team who are always looking at this. So this is just to say conversations are happening and we are hearing that feedback. And I think my hope is that we'll be soon enough proactively asking you for feedback as we look at what systems might work. So. All right. Anything
I
else?
want to give a shout out to Josh. I mean, this is awesome, man. I mean, thank you so much for all those quick emails. I mean, I'm sorry, sometimes I'm OCD. I have no unread emails, so I respond very quickly back. That doesn't mean you have to, please.
No, I try to respond within a day or two to everything.
Yeah.
Depending on my workload, I can be a bit quicker.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But
don't worry
I
about
really
it.
thank you, because one of the things which we did is that we did a new format for the newsletter, and we were very worried because you have your own framework, and now it is very nice, and at some point we can even share it with the other sections if they want to use it. It's an open access software called Canva or whatever. Canva, yeah. And so I know nothing about it. So, but I think it came out very nicely. So, when people read it on their big screens, it's very nice. Word is very good too, but it is not as pretty as this one.
Yeah, hydrologies usually set the standard for newsletters. You always do a really good job with that.
And that's why I tell everybody I meet, go with the flow.
Yeah.
That's great. Bob.
So this is maybe one of these like, well, here's a difficulty I see, but I don't know exactly the best way around it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the section financials and reporting, and our job as presidents is to make sure that we're stewarding our money appropriately and that we have enough for whatever we need. And I think the trick that's hard is, and maybe it's associated with the fact that most of our expenses occur about 20 days before the end of the fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to, and a lot of these expenses are difficult to predict. And I think that for me anyway, the challenge has always been, I don't know what the costs of the meeting are going to end up having been by the end of the year. And so if I'm asked, oh, we want to have an extra OSPA award, can we afford that? I'm often just sort of like, I'm hopeful. And I guess so I guess it's far too much to ask AGU to switch its fiscal year to June or something, right? But maybe the request is, and it could be just a communications thing, and maybe I haven't been able to see it, but more predictability in what the meeting expenses are going to end up being. so that it makes it a little easier for section leadership to kind of understand, oh, we can afford to give this extra travel grant this year, or, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important, and we will keep that in mind and work with the meetings team. I think that we have tried to the extent that we can, as we, at least the section event planning, we've worked with the meetings team to get us estimates in advance, you know, because sometimes they don't know either. So maybe
Right.
that will help. But Josh, I don't know if you had anything to add on that.
No, yeah, I have requested this year. We did something with one of the sections or with getting estimates ahead of time for the food and beverage, and they provided a template on how to calculate how much that would cost. So I asked if we could do something like that for all of the sections this year to kind of make it a little bit easier on you. And I know another issue is with AV. So we're gonna work on getting
Right.
AV estimates for packages out to you. The only issue with AV, and I understand AV is a little bit of a issue for sections because the cost is unfortunately quite
Super
high,
high.
especially for conferences. But
Yeah.
we won't know the final price of the AV until we know all of the requirements, because once we have all of that in, our meetings team is able to work
Bundle
on
and
the
save, essentially.
pricing,
Yeah.
kind of negotiate a little bit. So the estimates are a little bit higher at first, but I think that actually works out to make sure we're not overspending as well.
Yeah. And I guess just a quick corollary that I've fortunately never uh, had to learn the hard way is, if a section overspends and goes into deficit, how bad is that? You know, and this is mostly trying to do this for Osa's benefit so that she can, she can not have to learn the hard way.
Since I've been here, which it hasn't been too long, I don't believe we've had a section go into a deficit. We did have one section where they had a sponsor who hadn't been billed yet for an event, but we quickly got that turned around. So Rosa, I'm not sure if we have a policy on what happens if a section goes into a deficit yet.
And I've been here, well, a little bit longer than you, but
Yeah.
not much. I've been here like, what, 3.5 years. So it hasn't happened. But I know that there have been some times, to your point, like, right, exactly. You're holding your breath and it's like, we think we're okay. So I'm hoping that we can kind of put some things in place like Josh was talking about, where we can have better estimates, guesstimates. I mean, I would say that we would work with you, you know, AG would work with you and figure something out. But it hasn't happened. But yeah, I understand it's a little hairy, scary as you approach the annual meeting, and we're not always sure. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, John, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah, this is working. We, you know, in terms of bidirectional conversations, the hydrology section has a history of spawning new sections. I don't know how many sections have spawned out of hydrology, but maybe 5 or something like that, with cryosphere and things like that. There's a new initiative coming forward, which is the distributed measurement technical committee. So and Venkat, is Venkat still here? Maybe not. In any case, there's a very excited group of people who's going to be doing this new thing, which is really going to be cross-sectional. And they landed in hydrology just because we were, you know, I do distributed measurement. Well, let's face it. But anyway, so they're great. They do a lot of water stuff. But I wanted to just mention to Josh that it's going to be one more technical committee, so one more group on the schedule for fall meeting get-togethers. So that was the one that we scheduled after the regular ones. That was by the way, a very, very effective use of that space. So thank you guys all for letting that happen. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that there's going to be additional expenses, more breakfasts, all that stuff. And then also, I think that adding in, Rosa, your observations about cross-sectional fluidity, it's going to be a real opportunity to leverage whatever you come up with there, because this group really wants to work across sections, and we've been struggling. To be clear, what's happening is that we started what's called the MacGyver session, where we present cool new technologies. And then Cryosphere started their MacGyver session, and Oceanography started their MacGyver session. And so now we have like 3 or so MacGyver sessions going on, which is great, but it's kind of like, you know, a lot of these technologies cross over. And so I think we have not yet landed on a place where we're really serving our membership in some of these areas. And this new technical committee exemplifies that. So just a heads up and kind of maybe another plea to continue thinking on those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be great. And John, you know, we've been doing some member research over the last year or so, and I think one of the things that we're looking at is kind of experiences, less transactional around membership and more experiences with members and adding member value. And part of that is coming to folks like you, sections, and saying, how can we test some things? How can we talk to some members and see if an experience really sticks? So I may be reaching out more than usual. I'm always a little nervous because there's also the fatigue of asking for volunteers to do things all the time, but staff don't know. So, you know, so my hope is I can reach out to you all, and as we kind of test some of these things, including John, how do we do some cross-sectional stuff?
Love to run some experiments on that. That'd be fun.
Great. All right, we've got about a couple of minutes left. Anything else, you guys? Yeah. Well, I hope you have a good meeting next week. You know, please reach out to us at any point. And we've got our first monthly meeting with section leaders at the end of, well, maybe it's mid-March. I think it's March 17th.
Yeah.
So we'll see you then. And thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.